Hi, it's Travis White with the Persuasive Communication Tip of the Week. Can you predict the future? You may think you can, but actually we're not very good at predicting the future. However, we can prepare for multiple possibilities in the future. So we can prepare for an uncertain future even if we can't predict that uncertain future. So today let's talk about how we think about the past, how we think about the future, and how communications can help us integrate those two and prepare for uncertain futures. Now, Mark Twain once said, in the real world, nothing ever happens at the right time or the right place. It's up to historians to fix that. And that's what we often do as we think about the past. We think about cause and effect, and the way our brains work, we want to link things together, we want to connect the dots, and we want to say, this caused that. It's very difficult. Reality is so complex, and there's so many different variables and so many different things happening at the same time that it's very difficult to explain precise cause and effect. In fact, we're still debating what caused the Civil War in the United States. It's 150 years ago the Civil War broke out, and we're still debating what were the exact causes of that war. And I'm sure we'll debate that for many years to come. So we tend to look at the past, and again, the way our brains work, the way our logic works, we like to connect the dots and say this caused that, and therefore that was inevitable. Since we think we can explain the past, we think we can explain the future as well. In the same way, we tell stories about the future. This causes this. If we do this, just like in the past, then that will result. Well, it often doesn't. And the way we do this oftentimes is we simply take the current trends, today's trends, and project them into the future. We don't see untoward events that might pop up, unusual events, the black swans as they're sometimes called, that can change the course of history. Give you a very mundane example. Back in the early 1990s, call centers were becoming very popular in the United States, and they were hiring rapidly, building buildings just to put call centers in them, and companies were using call centers to interact with their customers, to take orders. If you wanted to order something, you called somebody, they entered it into the order entry system, and so forth. There was a projection at the time that said if we continue to hire people for call centers at the same pace we have been for the past 5 years, everybody in the United States will be working in a call center by the year 2010. Well, what happened? We're not all working in call centers by the year 2010. One is the internet happened. And so instead of calling a person and letting them do the order entry process, we can do the order entry process ourselves. Do it yourself. Okay, so that shifted the demand for call centers. It also enabled the offshoring of call centers. So many call centers moved to other locations outside the United States. Those two things, basically the internet and offshoring, shifted the demand and slowed down the growth of call centers in the United States. That's something you can't predict because it's the black swan. It's something that hasn't happened before. So there's a method that I like to teach, that I like to use, and it's not perfect, but it's called scenario planning. We talk about scenarios in the future. And one of the elements of scenario planning is called PESTLE. P-E-S-T-L-E, that's the acronym. And it means that to think about the future, you have to think about at least 6 different trends, 6 different macro environments, if you will. And PESTLE stands for political. You have to think about the political environment, the economic environment, social environment, technical environment, legal environment, and the environmental environment, what's going on with the environment. So it's a structured way to think about multiple things happening simultaneously. And with the scenario planning, you're not trying to predict the future, you're not trying to come up with exactly what's going to happen in the future, you're trying to come up with multiple scenarios, typically 2 or 3 or 4 different scenarios. What will we do if this scenario plays out? What will we do if that scenario plays out? Again, today, we often project the future in healthcare. We say the healthcare costs have been rising dramatically over the past 5 years, past 10 years. If we project those into the future, the entire economy of the United States, the entire budget of the United States, the entire budget of your household will be consumed by healthcare costs. Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but what are the scenarios? Let's think of a scenario where something dramatic happens. What if we cure cancer? Well, that might then drive down the cost of healthcare. What if we come up with other technologies, other understandings of our biology and human nature, and come up with different solutions that are less costly? What if we can prevent diseases more effectively? A lot of different scenarios. With scenario planning and using the PESTLE model, you can come up with a variety of scenarios, and if you're the manager or the leader of an organization, you can say, how would our organization react in this scenario, this scenario, this scenario, or this scenario, and you can be prepared. It doesn't say this one is going to happen, definitely, but it says the range, we've probably got most of the things covered, and we'll know how to react when we get there. So think about scenario planning as part of your leadership development. Think about scenario planning as a way to prepare for uncertain futures. And that's the Persuasive Communication Tip of the Week. See you again next week.